That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun crested the horizon over Fort Harlan, casting long shadows across the concrete parade ground. Staff Sergeant Elena Reyes stood at attention, her boots polished to a mirror shine, the weight of her utility uniform pressing against her shoulders like an old friend. At her side, Rex, her Belgian Malinois, sat rigid, his ears perked forward, black fur gleaming under the early light. The air carried the sharp tang of dew on gravel and the faint hum of generators powering the base's perimeter lights. Around them, the K-9 unit assembled in formation, handlers and their dogs in precise rows, breaths syncing with the cadence of the morning muster. "Unit, attention!" barked Captain Harlan Voss, the commanding officer of the 47th Military Police Battalion. His voice cut through the quiet like a rifle crack, echoing off the low barracks buildings. Elena's spine straightened further, her hand resting lightly on Rex's harness. At 7 years old, Rex was a veteran of deployments in the sandbox, his nose attuned to threats no human eye could detect. Their bond was forged in silence, nights of shared watches, the dog's steady gaze meeting hers during briefings. She trusted him implicitly. He was her shadow, her sentinel. The routine was sacred here at Fort Harlan, a sprawling installation in the arid southwest, home to specialized training for detection and patrol units. Mornings began with accountability, roll call, equipment checks, then drills to sharpen instincts. Voss paced the front, his clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the ranks. "Sergeant Reyes, report on Rex's certification status." "Current and compliant, sir," Elena replied, her tone even, gaze fixed ahead. "Last eval, full pass on explosive detection and perimeter sweep." Voss nodded curtly, moving on. He was a by-the-book leader, risen through the ranks on discipline alone. Under his command, the unit had zero tolerance for deviations. Every patrol, every search followed protocol to the letter. Elena respected that. It kept them alive in the field. But lately, whispers circulated through the mess hall about budget cuts rippling from higher up. Equipment shortages, delayed rotations, nothing overt, but the tension hummed like static on a radio. After muster, the unit divided for the day's exercise, a simulated building clear in the old auxiliary wing, a relic from the base's Cold War days. The structure loomed at the edge of the compound, its corridors lined with faded paint and locked storage rooms, used now for urban ops training. Elena and Rex were assigned to the lead team, entering first to sweep for mock threats. She clipped the leash to his harness, feeling the familiar tension in his muscles. "Easy, boy," she murmured, her voice low enough not to carry. Rex's tail gave a single wag. Acknowledgement, not excitement. The team filed in through the heavy steel door, boots thudding on the linoleum floor. Flashlights pierced the dim interior, beams dancing over dusty shelves and abandoned desks. Private First Class Thomas Kerr, Elena's junior handler, flanked her right, his own dog, a young Labrador named Scout, padding silently. Behind them, Corporal Lena Ortiz covered the rear, radio crackling softly in her vest. "Clear left," Elena called as they advanced down the main hall, Rex's nose working the air in rhythmic sniffs. The corridor stretched empty, fluorescent lights flickering overhead from a backup generator. It was protocol, methodically clear each room, mark it secure. But as they reached the midpoint, Rex halted abruptly. His hackles rose, a low rumble building in his throat. Elena froze, her hand tightening on the leash. "What is it?" she whispered, scanning the shadows. The hall was vacant, peeling wallpaper, a single exit sign, glowing red at the far end. No movement, no sound beyond the distant echo of other teams in adjacent wings. Rex barked once, sharp and insistent, straining toward the wall to their left. It was an old plaster barrier, unmarked, separating what used to be admin offices from storage. Elena's pulse quickened. She'd trained him to alert only on real cues, not phantoms. "Stand by," she said into her radio, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Kerr glanced over, brow furrowed. "False positive. He's solid on drills." "Not like this," Elena replied, kneeling to Rex's level. She ran her hand along his flank, feeling the tremor of certainty in him, his eyes locked on hers, dark, unblinking, conveying what words never could. "Trust him," that gaze said. Always. She knew the rules. Alerts were to be logged and verified by the team lead, no solo actions. But ignoring this felt wrong, a betrayal of the partnership that had saved lives before. "Captain Voss, this is Reyes," she keyed her radio, keeping it professional. "Rex is alerting on grid point 7 Alpha, empty corridor. Request permission to investigate." Static hissed back, then Voss's voice. "Negative, Sergeant. Complete the sweep as assigned. Engineering will check structural anomalies later. Move on." Elena hesitated, the weight of command pressing down. Rex whined softly, pawing at the baseboard. The air seemed thicker here, carrying a faint, acrid undertone she couldn't place. Chemical, maybe, or something metallic. Protocol screamed obedience. Finish the drill, debrief after. But her conscience tugged, sharp as a bayonet. What if it wasn't nothing? Bases like Harlan stored classified materials. An overlooked hazard could endanger the entire unit. Kerr shifted uneasily. "Sarge, orders are orders. We can't—" "Stand down!" Elena cut him off, her decision crystallizing in the silence. She unclipped Rex's leash, a small defiance born of years of reliance. "We're checking it. Cover me." Rex surged forward, nose pressed to the wall, barking again, urgent, unrelenting. Elena followed, gloved hand tracing the seams. The plaster felt cool, unyielding, but Rex's alerts grew frantic. She tapped the radio surface lightly. It echoed hollowly, not solid. Something was off, amiss in the order of things. Ortiz's voice crackled from behind. "Reyes, that's not cleared. You're off script." "I know," Elena said, meeting Rex's gaze once more. Loyalty wasn't just to ranks, it was to the truth they uncovered together. With a steady breath, she drew her multi-tool, prying at the edge where plaster met baseboard. Flakes crumbled away, revealing a seam that shouldn't be there, a hidden panel concealed behind decades of neglect. The first crack widened, and a puff of dust escaped, carrying that sharp scent stronger now. Rex sat back on his haunches, alert, sustained. Elena's heart pounded, but her hands remained sure. Whatever lay behind, it demanded attention. Now, before the routine swallowed it whole. As the gap grew, Kerr shone his light inside. The beam caught on something metallic, glinting unnaturally. "What the hell?" he muttered. Elena didn't respond. The base's unyielding order had just fractured, and in that moment, she chose the path of conscience over compliance. The discovery would ripple outward, but for now, it was just her, Rex, and the wall giving way to secrets long buried. The dust settled in lazy swirls as Elena widened the gap, her multi-tool scraping against the hidden frame. Rex held his position, ears forward, a low growl vibrating through his chest like distant thunder. The beam from Kerr's flashlight trembled slightly, illuminating a narrow recess, barely 2 feet deep, lined with rusted metal sheeting that had been hastily covered over. Inside, stacked crates loomed, unmarked and coated in a fine layer of grime, their edges sharp against the intrusion of light. "Secure the area," Elena ordered, her voice clipped, rising to her feet. She keyed her radio again, ignoring the knot of protocol violation tightening in her stomach. "Captain Voss, this is Reyes. We've breached a concealed panel at 7 Alpha, multiple containers inside, unidentified. Request immediate backup and EOD." The response came swift, laced with edge. "Sergeant Reyes, stand down and withdraw. That's an unauthorized breach. Engineering team en route. Do not touch anything." Kerr's face paled in the dim light, his hand hovering near Scout's collar. "Sarge, he's right. This could be structural. Old wiring or something. We just blew the drill." Elena shot him a look, steady and unyielding. "Rex doesn't alert on wiring. This is deliberate concealment." She scanned the crates. Wooden, reinforced with metal bands, stenciled faintly in faded ink that might have been Cyrillic script. The acrid scent sharpened. Solvent, perhaps, or something more volatile. Her training kicked in. She'd seen enough improvised storage in forward operating bases to know this wasn't routine maintenance. Ortiz stepped closer. Her radio silenced for the moment. "If it's classified, we're in deep. Voss will have our hides for this." "Or save them," Elena countered, though doubt flickered in her mind. The chain of command was ironclad. Defying it here in a training exercise could end careers. But Rex's sustained alert, his body language screaming certainty, overrode the hesitation. He'd detected IEDs in Fallujah, narcotics in transit ops. His instincts were the unit's edge. To pull back now felt like abandoning a partner in the field. Minutes stretched as the team held position, flashlights sweeping the corridor. Footsteps echoed from the entrance, heavy, purposeful. Captain Voss burst through with 2 engineers in tow, their vests laden with tools and detectors. His face was a mask of controlled fury, jaw set under the brim of his cap. "Reyes, explain yourself. Now." Elena stood at ease, Rex at her side, leash reattached but loose. "Sir," Rex alerted hard on the wall. "Standard protocol for K-9 response. Investigate to confirm or clear." The panel was sealed, not structural. Potential hazard to ongoing ops. Voss's eyes narrowed, flicking to the exposed recess. One engineer, a wiry specialist named Patel, knelt and ran a handheld scanner over the opening. The device beeped erratically, red light pulsing. "Sir, elevated readings, trace volatiles, could be chemical residue. These crates, they're not on any manifest I've seen." The captain's posture stiffened, the weight of implication settling. He gestured sharply. "Evacuate the wing, full lockdown protocol. Reyes, you and your team debrief in my office after containment." As the engineers cordoned the area with tape and warning signs, the unit's routine shattered. Alarms whooped softly in the distance, drawing personnel from adjacent buildings. Whispers rippled through the ranks outside, handlers exchanging glances, dogs sensing the shift in tension, pacing at their sides. Elena led Rex out, his nails clicking on the linoleum, the dog's calm demeanor an anchor amid the chaos. She felt the stares, curiosity mixed with judgment. Defiance in training wasn't unheard of, but this, it treaded into insubordination. Back in the crisp morning air, the parade ground buzzed with activity. Trucks rumbled up, MPs directing traffic as the auxiliary wing was cleared. Eleanor knelt to check Rex's paws, brushing off dust, her fingers lingering on his harness. "Good boy," she murmured, the praise quiet, earned. He leaned into her touch, warm breath against her wrist, a silent affirmation of their bond, unbroken by the unfolding scrutiny. In Voss's office, a squat prefab with maps pinned to cinder-block walls, the debrief convened under fluorescent hum. Elena sat straight-backed. Rex curled at her feet, while Kerr and Ortiz flanked her. Voss paced behind his desk, steam rising from a forgotten coffee mug. "Walk me through it, Sergeant. Every detail." She recounted it methodically. The alert, the hollow tap, the pry. No embellishment, just facts. Radio logs would back her up. Voss listened, arms crossed, the clock ticking like a metronome. "You ignored my direct order to proceed with the sweep. That's an Article 92 violation, failure to obey." "With respect, sir," Elena replied, meeting his gaze evenly. "K-9 protocol prioritizes alert verification to mitigate risk. If we'd moved on and this was active—" "Speculation," Voss cut in, though his tone softened fractionally. Engineering's initial scan suggests old surplus, pesticides or decontam agents from the 80s, sealed for disposal, forgotten in red tape. But your breach compromised the site. Higher-ups are notified. Base command's involved. Kerr shifted. Sir, if it was nothing, it wasn't nothing, Voss said, halting. He rubbed his temple, the rigidity cracking just enough to reveal the man's own burdens, budget audits looming, inspections due. Reyes, your record's spotless, but loyalty to the mission means loyalty to orders. This sets a precedent. Elena's jaw tightened, the moral chasm widening. Obedience had its place, but so did discernment. Rex lifted his head, sensing her tension, a soft whine escaping. She placed a hand on his head, drawing strength from the contact. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken consequences. Reprimands, perhaps reassignment, or worse, a shadow over the unit's trust. As they filed out, Voss called after her. Sergeant, off the record, good instincts, but next time loop me in first. Elena nodded, the partial vindication bittersweet. Outside, the base thrummed with subdued energy. The auxiliary wing now a forbidden zone under floodlights. Word spread through the chow line by midday. The hidden cache, the K-9's nose cracking the facade. Handlers nodded to her in passing, a mix of respect and wariness. Rex trotted beside her toward the kennels, the sun warming their path, but the fracture lingered. That evening, as Elena logged the incident in her notebook, procedural notes, Rex's behavior metrics, the radio on her desk crackled with an urgent tone. Base command, full investigation launched, auxiliary shut down overnight. Her choice had escalated, pulling threads from the institution's underbelly. Duty demanded she stand by it, even as the reckoning loomed, testing the bonds that held them all. The fluorescent lights in the kennel block cast stark shadows across the concrete floor, the air thick with the earthy scent of hay and the faint musk of K-9 fur. Elena Reyes moved methodically between the runs, checking water bowls and noting Rex's vitals in the logbook under the dim glow of a desk lamp. His enclosure was last, always, her ritual to end the day. Rex lay curled on his blanket, eyes half-lidded but alert, the day's exertions etched in the subtle rise and fall of his flanks. She scratched behind his ears, feeling the warmth of his coat, the steady pulse beneath. "Rest easy," she whispered, the words more for herself than him. The radio on the wall squawked again, pulling her back. All K-9 handlers, report to briefing room Alpha at 600, mandatory. This is not a drill. Dude, the voice was Base Command's adjutant, clipped and impersonal, broadcasting across the unit's frequencies. Eleanor's hand paused on the latch. The shutdown of the auxiliary wing had rippled outward overnight. Perimeter patrols doubled, non-essential personnel confined to quarters. Whispers in the barracks spoke of chemical traces, old munitions, something buried in the base's history that no one wanted unearthed. Her defiance had ignited it all. Sleep came fitfully that night, broken by the distant rumble of generators and the occasional bark from another run. By dawn, the base stirred under a veil of fog rolling in from the distant mountains, muting the usual clamor. Elena arrived early to the briefing room, a windowless prefab lined with folding chairs and a projector screen flickering to life. Rex stayed in the transport crate outside, his presence a quiet comfort through the door. Other handlers filtered in, Kerr nursing a thermos of coffee, Ortiz with her tablet at the ready, a dozen more faces etched with fatigue. Captain Voss entered last, followed by Major Lydia Grant from Base Intelligence, her uniform starched, tablet in hand. "Settle in," Voss said, his voice carrying the gravel of a sleepless night. He stood at the front, arms folded, the room falling silent, save for the hum of the air unit. "Last night's incident has escalated. Engineering and EOD confirmed the crates, surplus from a 1980s decontamination program, sealed vials of experimental agents, nerve agent simulants for training, deemed inert decades ago, but the seals compromised. Trace leaks explain the volatiles, the wings contaminated, full decon required. Murmurs rippled through the chairs. Kerr leaned forward. "Sir, how bad? Evac?" Grant stepped up, her expression neutral, eyes scanning the group like a perimeter sweep. Level 2 hazard, no immediate threat, but exposure risks long-term. Base operations halt for 72 hours minimum, external teams inbound from JTF. This stays contained, no external comms. Her gaze settled on Elena, lingering. "Sergeant Reyes, your team's actions prompted the discovery. Walk us through the breach again, for the record." Elena rose, posture square, the weight of eyes pressing in. She recounted it precisely. Rex's alert. The hollow echo, the pry with the multi-tool, no justifications, just sequence, timestamps from the radio log projected behind her. Grant nodded, tapping her tablet. Protocol breach noted. K-9 verification is standard, but direct order override constitutes insubordination. Commands reviewing for UCMJ implications. Voss cleared his throat, a subtle intervention. The find was critical. Without it, routine ops could have spread contaminants. But procedure exists for a reason. Chain of command ensures safety. The room shifted uneasily. Ortiz spoke up, voice measured. "Sir, Rex's hit rate is 98%, dismissing that in the moment." "Enough," Grant interjected, her tone sharpening. "This isn't a debate. The Major General's office is looped in. An inquiry board assembles tomorrow. Reyes, you're sidelined pending review, no field duties. Your dog reassigns to secondary handler for eval." Elena's breath caught, a cold spike in her chest. Rex, reassigned? The bond wasn't just operational, it was foundational. Years of synced rhythms, shared silences in the field. She met Grant's eyes steadily. "Ma'am, with respect, Rex's alerts are calibrated to my cues. Reassignment risks his performance." Grant's lips thinned. "That's for the board. Loyalty to the unit means adaptability, Sergeant. Personal attachments don't factor." The briefing dissolved into assignments, decon teams, security rotations, leaving Elena adrift in the corridor outside. She knelt by Rex's crate, unlatching it to let him stretch, his nose bumping her palm in greeting. The fog clung to the air, dampening the gravel underfoot, the base's flags hanging limp. Handlers passed with nods, some avoiding her gaze. Word of the inquiry had spread like radio static. Kerr paused, clapping her shoulder lightly. "Hang tight, Sarge. Board's fair, mostly." But fairness felt distant, a moral fault line cracking wider. Duty demanded obedience. Yet her conscience recoiled at sidelining Rex, at the system's machinery grinding over instinct. The crate's revelation, forgotten hazards from the base's past, mirrored her own. Buried risks, ignored until forced into light. If compliance had prevailed, the leak might have gone undetected, endangering patrols, eroding trust in the K-9 program. By midday, the inquiry board convened in a stark conference room, cinder-block walls echoing with the scratch of pens. Elena sat alone at a long table, Rex confined to the kennels under observation. Colonel Marcus Hale presided, flanked by Voss and a JAG rep, their faces impassive under the harsh lights. "Sergeant, your actions saved potential casualties," Hale began, reviewing the report. "But they violated Article 92. Explain your rationale." She spoke evenly, hands flat on the table. "Sir, Rex's alert indicated imminent risk. Protocol 4 to 7B. Verify K-9 response before proceeding. The order to move on conflicted. I prioritized mission integrity over strict sequence." Hale leaned back, the chair creaking. "And if every handler interprets integrity their way, the chain fractures." The question hung, heavy as the scent of polished oak from the table. Elena felt the tremor in her resolve, not fear, but the raw edge of conviction. "Sir, the chain protects us, but blind links fail under pressure. Rex detected what scans missed. Ignoring him would have been the greater failure." Voss shifted, his earlier support unspoken but present in the subtle nod. The Jag noted it down, the room thick with the weight of precedent. Outside, the base idled, choppers grounded, tents empty under the climbing sun, the shutdown a direct echo of her choice. As the board recessed for deliberation, Eleanor stepped into the light, the dry wind carrying distant commands. Rex's fate, her career, the unit's trust, all balanced on this precipice, where obedience met the unyielding call of right. The afternoon dragged in procedural limbo. Elena, assigned to admin oversight in the MP headquarters, logging decon manifests under the watchful eye of a junior officer. Radios crackled with updates. External teams arriving at dusk, hazmat suits gleaming under floodlights as they breached the wing fully. The crates yielded more, dozens of vials. Labels faded but legible. Simulants for sarin analogues, mothballed after Cold War exercises. No active threat, but the oversight screamed negligence. Red tape from decades past, buried to avoid budget scrutiny. Word filtered back through the chain. Higher command praised the discovery, but the breach drew fire. In the mess hall, over trays of reheated MREs, handlers clustered in low tones. Reyes stuck her neck out, one said, Fork pausing. "If they nail her, what's that say about trusting the dogs?" Ortiz sat across, her expression guarded. "Says we follow orders, or we all pay. But damn if Rex didn't earn it." Elena overheard from the line, the validation small but steadying. Loyalty wasn't defiance for its own sake. It was the quiet insistence on truth amid the ranks' rigid lines. As evening fell, she returned to the kennels, the path lit by sodium lamps casting orange pools. Rex greeted her with a muffled woof through the gate, tail thumping. She entered the run, sitting cross-legged as he leaned against her, the contact grounding. The base's hum softened, stars pricking the sky, but the reckoning pressed on. Tomorrow's verdict, a test of whether conscience could bend the system without breaking it. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The sodium lamps flickered on as dusk settled over Fort Harlan, their orange glow stretching long shadows across the gravel paths leading to the kennels. Elena Reyes walked with measured steps, the cool evening air carrying the faint bite of sagebrush from the surrounding hills. Her boots crunched softly, each footfall a reminder of the day's suspended routines. Patrols grounded, drills cancelled. The base's pulse slowed to a cautious throb. Rex's run came into view, the chain-link gate rattling faintly as she approached. Inside, he rose from his blanket, nose pressing against the mesh, dark eyes locking onto hers with that unwavering focus. She unlatched the gate, stepping in without a word. Rex moved to her side, his body warm and solid against her leg, the subtle vibration of his contented rumble easing the tension coiled in her shoulders. Elena sank to one knee, running her fingers along his spine, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. No commands, no drills, just this quiet communion, forged in the silences of countless nights. The kennel's air held the familiar scents, damp earth from the exercise yard, the metallic tang of water troughs, and Rex's own clean musk. Outside, a distant truck engine growled, hauling equipment for the decon teams. But here, the world narrowed to the two of them. The inquiry board's recess had left her in limbo, the colonel's words echoing like radio static, blind links fail under pressure. Elena had held her ground, but the cost pressed in, the sidelining of Rex, the scrutiny on her record. Loyalty to the unit meant adaptability, Major Grant had said, but adaptability felt like severance, a cut to the core of what made her effective. Rex nudged her hand, pawing gently at her knee, as if sensing the fracture. She met his gaze, the bond a silent anchor amid the institutional tide. A sharp whistle cut the air, Kerr approaching from the path, his silhouette backlit by the lamps. "Sarge, got a minute?" He stopped at the gate, hands in his pockets, Scout's leash loose in one fist. The Labrador sat obediently, ears perked toward the conversation. Elena nodded, rising slowly. "What's the word?" Kerr glanced over his shoulder, voice low. Boards deliberating overnight. Hale pulled strings, Jags digging into the manifest logs from the 80s. Turns out those crates weren't just surplus. They were part of a black-budget simulant program, off books even then, sealed without proper decon, because Command wanted to bury the costs. She processed it, the revelation settling like dust after a breach. And us? The breach? They're framing it as a gray area. Your protocol site, 47B, it's solid, but Voss's order overrides in training sims. Could go either way, commendation for the find or reprimand for the defiance. He shifted, gravel shifting under his boot. Handlers are talking. Some say you set a bad example, others... They get it. Rex saved asses before we even knew there was a threat. Elena leaned against the run's frame, the metal cool through her sleeve. It's not about example, it's about what we miss when we don't listen. Rex whined softly, circling her feet, his nails clicking on the concrete. The sound grounded her, a reminder that the system's gears turned on human and K-9 instincts, not just orders. Kerr nodded, clipping Scout's leash tighter. "Yeah, just watch your six. Grant's not one for loose ends." He turned to go, pausing. "If it helps, I'd back you in a statement. We all would, quiet-like." The offer hung, a thread of solidarity in the rigid hierarchy. Elena watched him fade into the shadows, the base's night watch beginning, sentries pacing under floodlights, their radios murmuring coordinates. She secured Rex's run, the latch clicking with finality, and headed to her quarters, the path winding past darkened barracks. Sleep evaded her again, the cot springs creaking under her restless shifts. Dreams fragmented, hollow walls crumbling, Rex's bark echoing through endless corridors, Voss's face blurring into Grant's stern gaze. Dawn broke grey and overcast, the fog from the previous day lingering like unresolved tension. Elena reported to the MP headquarters at 0500 as ordered, her uniform pressed despite the fatigue etching lines under her eyes. The conference room buzzed with low activity, clerks shuffling files, a coffee urn percolating steadily. Colonel Hale arrived first, his presence commanding silence, followed by Voss and the JAG officer, Lieutenant Ramirez, a sharp-eyed woman with a stack of declassified docs under her arm. Grant entered last, tablet glowing, the room's air thickening with anticipation. "Take seats," Hale directed, settling at the head. Elena chose a chair midway, posture erect, hands folded. No Rex this time. He'd been moved to observation under a vet tech, his absence a hollow space at her side. The colonel cleared his throat, the sound amplified in the quiet. "We've reviewed the logs, protocols, and initial EOD reports. Sergeant Reyes, your actions uncovered a hazard that could have compromised base safety for months. The simulants, MK-17 variants, were inert but volatile under stress. Leaks traced to seismic shifts from recent drills. Without intervention, dispersal was inevitable." Grant interjected, her voice even. "However, the breach violated direct orders. Article 92 applies. Failure to obey a superior. Precedent from similar cases, 2015 Pendleton, resulted in non-judicial punishment." Voss leaned forward, his gravelly tone cutting in. "With respect, ma'am, that case lacked K-9 corroboration. Reyes followed dual protocols, command and operational. The find validates her call." Ramirez flipped a page, glasses perched low. "Legally, it's defensible, but institutionally, it erodes chain of command. Recommend formal counseling, no career mark, pending command endorsement. Hale's eyes met Elena's. Assessing. Your rationale held, prioritizing risk mitigation, but next time escalate through channels. This isn't the field, it's home station. He paused, the weight of decision settling. No UCMJ action. Reprimand on file, verbal closed session. You're reinstated but under review for 6 months, and the dog remains with you pending joint eval. Relief washed through Eleanor, tempered by the reprimand's sting, a mark, however light, on the clean slate she'd built. She nodded crisply. Understood, sir. Thank you. The board adjourned, voices murmuring as they filed out. Voss lingered, clapping her shoulder briefly. Instincts like yours keep us sharp. Use the channels. They'll listen. His words carried the subtext of mentorship, a bridge across the moral divide. Outside, the base stirred back to life, though subdued. The auxiliary wing still cordoned, decon crews in white suits swarming like ants under the rising sun. Elena retrieved Rex from the vet bay, his tail wagging in restrained arcs as she clipped his leash. The handler on duty nodded approval. He's steady as ever, bonds intact, no performance dip. They walked the perimeter together, the dry wind whispering through chain-link fences, carrying the hum of returning helicopters. Handlers greeted her with subtle salutes, the earlier wariness easing into respect. In the chow line later, Ortiz slid a tray her way. Heard the verdict, tough, but fair. Rex knew. Elena scratched Rex's ear under the table, his head resting on her boot. We both did. The moment passed in silence. The mess hall's clatter a backdrop to the quiet victory. But the reprimand lingered, a ripple through the ranks, handlers questioning protocols, whispering of reforms to integrate K-9 alerts higher in the chain. Elena's stand had cracked the facade, forcing light on buried oversights, from the crates to the rigid orders that nearly blinded them. By afternoon, Base Command issued a memo. Enhanced training on historical manifests, mandatory K-9 integration in structural sweeps, small changes born of one defiance, echoing outward. Elena logged the day's metrics with Rex at her feet, the notebook's pages filling with notes on their synced cues. The sun dipped low, casting golden edges on the parade ground, where a lone formation drilled under Voss's watchful eye. Duty and conscience intertwined, not in conflict but in balance, a legacy etched in discipline, one alert at a time. As night fell again, Elena stood at the kennel door, Rex's silhouette visible in the lamplight. The base's secrets had surfaced, but so had hers, the unyielding pull of right over rote. The wind picked up, rustling tents in the distance, a reminder that order rebuilt stronger, tested by those who dared to question it. The morning briefing in the MP headquarters carried a new undercurrent, the air heavy with the scent of fresh coffee and oiled leather from stacked gear crates. Elena Reyes stood at the back, Rex at her heel, his harness clipped but loose, allowing him to scan the room with subtle head turns. The reprimand from the board lingered like a faint scar. Verbal. On file, a quiet reminder in her personnel jacket, but reinstatement brought her back to the fold. Captain Voss addressed the assembled handlers, his voice steady over the low hum of the projector fan displaying updated protocols. Listen up. The auxiliary wing decon is 60% complete. External teams confirm no dispersal risk, but we're integrating K-9 sweeps into all structural inspections moving forward. Sergeant Reyes's input factored into the revisions. Alert verification now escalates directly to command without delay. His eyes met hers briefly, a nod of acknowledgement passing unspoken. The room shifted, chairs creaking as handlers exchanged glances, Kerr with a subtle thumbs up, Ortiz jotting notes on her pad. No fanfare, just the procedural grind resuming, tempered by the echo of yesterday's fracture. Elena felt the weight of it settle. Her stand hadn't shattered the chain, but it had bent it, forcing light into the gaps. Rex sensed her steadiness, leaning slightly against her leg. his warmth a constant through the wool of her trousers. Outside, the base hummed back to rhythm, trucks idling in the motor pool, the distant thump of boots on the parade ground, but the auxiliary wing remained a ghost, cordoned yellow tape fluttering in the breeze like warning flags. Post-briefing, Elena led Rex to the training yard, a fenced expanse of packed dirt scarred by tire tracks from agility drills. The sun climbed higher, baking the ground and releasing the sharp tang of dust. She unclipped his leash, giving the hand signal for perimeter work, a loose circle, nose to the wind. Rex moved fluidly, ears forward, methodically quartering the area as if the yard held hidden threats. Elena watched, notebook in hand, logging his responses, pace even, alerts nil, bond metrics optimal despite the separation stress of the past days. The vet eval had cleared him, but she knew the subtle cues. A slight hesitation in his turns, a need to re-sync after the disruption. Private Kerr joined her at the fence, Scout trotting beside him, the Labrador's tongue lolling in the heat. "Sarge, command's got a follow-up. Major Grant wants a joint demo, K-9 and engineering on a mock structural sweep. Your lead, since it's your protocol tweak." Elena nodded, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her glove. "When?" 1400. Briefing room beta, and word is the Major General's observer might show, checking the reforms firsthand. Kerr's tone held a mix of caution and pride, the unit's quiet buzz about her role filtering through. She clipped Rex back, feeling his immediate response, the subtle press of his shoulder to hers, a reaffirmation in motion. The demo convened under a cloudless sky, the auxiliary wing's shadow looming at the yard's edge. Engineering specialists in khaki coveralls assembled with detectors and blueprints, their tools clinking softly. Major Grant arrived punctual, her tablet holstered, flanked by a stern-faced lieutenant from the general's staff. Voss oversaw from the sidelines, arms crossed, the group forming a loose semicircle around the simulated breach site. A mock wall erected overnight, plywood panels hiding benign anomalies like scent tubes. "Reyes, commence," Grant directed, her voice crisp over the wind's low whistle. Elena positioned Rex at the start line, her commands low and precise. "Search!" He advanced, nose working in tight arcs, the team's eyes tracking his every pause. At the third panel, he alerted, "Sit," bark sharp and directed. Elena knelt, tapping the surface. It echoed hollow. "Confirmed anomaly, ma'am. Recommend verify." Grant signaled an engineer who scanned and pried. A planted tube of mock volatile, detected clean. The lieutenant noted it, murmuring into a recorder. "Efficient, integrates K-9 without full halt." As the demo wrapped, applause was minimal. A few claps, professional nods, but the validation hummed. Grant approached Elena afterward, her expression thawing fractionally. "Your input's taking root. But remember, escalation prevents solos." The board's leniency was a one-time grace. "Understood, ma'am," Elena replied, Rex panting steadily at her side. The Major's words carried the institution's pulse. Reform through measured steps, not rebellion. Yet in the quiet aftermath, as teams dispersed, Kerr clapped her back. "That was solid. Handlers are calling it the Reyes rule. K-9 first in the blind spots." By evening, the ripples spread. In the mess hall, under the fluorescent glare and clatter of trays, conversations turned procedural. A veteran handler from another platoon leaned over. "Heard about the crates? 80s ghosts, huh? Your dog sniffed out what Brass buried. Respect." Elena ate methodically. Rex settled under the table, his head on her boot. The praise felt earned, not spotlighted. Emerging from the ranks shared vigilance. But doubt lingered, the reprimand's shadow, the risk of overreach. Loyalty to Rex demanded balance, instinct guided, but orders framed. Night brought the first external echo. Elena's radio crackled in her quarters, the small lamp casting warm pools on her bunk. "Sergeant Reyes, base POW. Media inquiry from a defense journal. Routine follow-up on the shutdown. Your roles mentioned in the logs. Statement. She sat up, the cot creaking. Public reckoning. The story leaking beyond the wire. The base's oversight now fodder for print. Keep it factual, sir. K-9 detection prompted the find. Protocols adapted. The PAO chuckled dryly. Copy. Higher-ups want it spun positive. Integrity in action. You're the face, if it goes wide. Sleep came in fits, the wind rattling her window like distant chopper blades. Dawn revealed the memo on the bulletin board. Enhanced K-9 Integration Directive. Effective immediately. Credit. Randy Reyes et al. Handlers paused to read, nods rippling. Voss caught her eye during muster. Good work. Legacies in the details. The day unfolded in drills, Rex's alerts sharpening the team's edge, the bond between them a quiet force amid the evolving order. Eleanor felt the transformation settle, not triumph, but equilibrium, where conscience forged reform without fracture. The base's secrets, once walled, now ventilated, her path once defiant, now aligned. Rex trotted beside her toward the yard, the sun warming their shadows, a testament to loyalty's enduring line. As the week progressed, the reforms embedded deeper, training schedules revised to include cross-unit briefs on historical hazards. Elena led a session in the auditorium, Rex demonstrating alerts to a room of engineers and MPs, his barks punctuating the slides on Protocol 4 to 7B. Questions came measured. What if the dog conflicts with scans? She answered evenly. Corroborate. Instinct and tech together. Grant observed from the back, her nod final approval. The Major General's office issued a commendation memo, quiet, internal, praising the unit's vigilance. Elena's reprimand faded to footnote, her name linked to progress. In the kennels that night, under the soft glow of overheads, she brushed Rex's coat, the bristles whispering against fur. He leaned in, eyes half closed, the day's exertions shared in silence. The base's hum surrounded them, generators thrumming, patrols pacing, a system strengthened, not by upheaval, but by the moral courage to question its seams. Duty and conscience, intertwined, carried forward. The external teams wrapped their decon work under a relentless midday sun, their hazmat suits shimmering like mirages against the auxiliary wing's faded facade. Elena Reyes stood at a safe distance on the perimeter, Rex's leash taut in her gloved hand as he sat alert, nose twitching toward the faint chemical residue still lingering in the air. The base's rhythm had stuttered back to life over the past days, patrols resuming in staggered shifts, the parade ground echoing with measured cadences, but the wing remained off-limits, a stark yellow tape barrier under constant watch. Trucks rumbled away from the site, laden with sealed containers, their tires kicking up dust that settled like a fine veil over the gravel. Captain Voss approached from the motor pool, his boots kicking small stones, clipboard tucked under his arm. Reyes, command's got an update. Major Grant's office, debrief at 1300. Bring Rex, they're reviewing the full integration directive. His tone was neutral, but the faint lines around his eyes spoke of the paperwork avalanche her discovery had unleashed. Elena nodded, feeling the subtle shift in his demeanor. No lingering frost from the inquiry, just the pragmatic grind of command. Understood, sir. Any previews? Voss glanced at the wing, the wind carrying a low whistle through the fence. Positive spin. The simulant's logs tied back to a forgotten DoD directive, Cold War era, buried in archives. Your alert prevented a PR nightmare. But they're auditing the whole K-9 program now. Expect questions on chain protocols. She processed it, Rex rising to match her movement, his flanks brushing her leg. The reforms she'd sparked, mandatory K-9 verifies in structural ops, were rolling out base-wide, but audits meant scrutiny, the kind that peeled back layers of routine to expose vulnerabilities. Loyalty to the unit pulled her forward, but the moral weight of her defiance lingered, a quiet test of whether conscience could endure institutional dissection without dilution. The debrief convened in a larger conference room, its walls lined with tactical maps and a long oak table scarred from years of briefings. Elena entered with Rex at heel, the dog's nails clicking softly on the linoleum. Drawing brief glances from the assembled, Major Grant at the head, flanked by 2 colonels from JTF Oversight and a civilian analyst from the Pentagon Safety Board, her laptop humming steadily. Voss took a seat to Elena's left, the air conditioned to a crisp chill that raised faint gooseflesh under her uniform sleeves. Rex settled under the table, his breath warm against her boot, a grounding presence amid the formal stares. Grant opened with clipped efficiency, projecting scans of the crates onto the screen, vials in stark relief, labels decoded to reveal their inert but hazardous legacy. Sergeant Reyes, your team's intervention contained a Level 2 exposure event. Initial reports credit K-9 detection as the pivot. Walk us through the escalation post-alert. Eleanor stood, posture unyielding, recounting the sequence with procedural precision, the bark in the corridor, the hollow tap, the pry despite the order. No drama, just timestamps and rationale. Protocol 47B weighed against the risk. The analyst tapped notes, her expression analytical. And the override, how does that factor into broader training doctrine? Direct order conflicted with operational safety. "Ma'am," Elena replied, meeting her gaze evenly, "in the field we'd verify. Home station shouldn't differ when lives hang on it." Rex shifted slightly, sensing the tension, a soft huff escaping him. The room paused, the colonels exchanging glances. One nodded faintly, the other scribbled a margin note. Grant leaned forward, tablet in hand. The audits recommending unit-wide retraining. Dual command briefs, where K-9 handlers flag alerts in real time via encrypted channels. Your input shaped it, Reyes, but it raises flags on autonomy. Handlers interpreting orders could cascade failures. Voss interjected smoothly. "Sir, ma'am, the directive strengthens the chain. Instincts like Reyes's fill the gaps tech misses. We've run sims, hit rates up 15% already." The discussion stretched, voices measured over the projector's hum, dissecting logs and hypotheticals. Elena felt the moral tension coil tighter. Her stand validated the find, but it spotlighted the system's rigid seams, forcing reforms that might bind instincts too closely. As the meeting adjourned, one colonel pulled her aside in the corridor, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "Good work, Sergeant. This goes up the ladder, commendation packets forming, but keep it by the book now. Eyes are on Harlan." The validation settled uneasily, a ripple through her resolve. Outside, the afternoon heat pressed down, the sun glinting off parked Humvees as Elena led Rex to the kennels. Handlers nodded in passing. The base's undercurrent alive with the audit's shadow, whispers in the motor pool of expanded evals, potential rotations for underperformers. Kerr caught up, jogging lightly. "Heard about the brass. They're calling you the wall breaker in the chow line. Quiet legend." Elena allowed a faint smile, clipping Rex into his run. "Legends get audited too. Stay sharp." The gate latched with a metallic click, Rex's eyes following her through the mesh, unwavering. Evening brought the first public echo. Elena's radio crackled during her rounds, the PAO's voice urgent over the static. "Reyes, stand by for a call. Defense outlets running apiece. Forgotten hazards unearthed at Southwest Base. Your name's in it, anonymized, but Command wants a quote on K-9 Valor." She paused by the perimeter lights, the bulbs warming the dusk air. Media attention, the reckoning spilling beyond the wire, the base's oversight now national, a test of institutional justice under scrutiny. "Keep it factual," she said. "Team effort. Rex detected. Protocol adapted." The PAO confirmed, but the article hit feeds by nightfall, dry, procedural. Yet it framed her defiance as moral courage, the crates as a symbol of buried bureaucratic sins. In the barracks, screens glowed under bunks, handlers scrolling silently. Ortiz slid her a printout later, over lukewarm coffee in the break room. They're praising the reforms, but watch, higher-ups hate spotlights. Sleep came fragmented, the wind howling through the vents like echoing barks. Dawn muster revealed the shift, Voss announcing the commendation verbally, no fanfare, just a nod to Eleanor during roll call. Units stronger for it. Handlers saluted sharper, respect woven into the routine. But Grant's gaze from the sidelines carried a warning. Reform's price was vigilance. By midday, a new directive circulated. Cross-training with JTF, Elena slated to lead K-9 modules for regional bases. The legacy expanded, her conscience sparking quiet change, but the cost pressed in. 6 months of reviews, the reprimands echo in evals. Rex trotted beside her to the yard, his stride synced, the bond a bulwark against the tide. The base's order rebuilt, tested and tempered, but the moral precipice loomed. One alert had shut it down. What might the next uncover? As the sun arced low, casting long shadows over the parade ground, Elena knelt to check Rex's harness, the leather warm from the day's heat. The institution learned slowly, but it learned. Duty fortified by the courage to defy, loyalty's line holding firm. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Reyes reach those who still believe in honor. The weeks following the audit blurred into a rhythm of intensified drills and cross-unit evaluations. The base's air carrying the persistent tang of decon chemicals that seeped from the auxiliary wing's sealed vents. Elena Reyes moved through it all with measured precision, her boots tracing familiar paths from kennels to parade ground. Rex at her side like a shadow, attuned to her every shift. The reprimand's mark lingered in her file, a closed notation, reviewed quarterly. But it had morphed into something quieter, a catalyst etched into the unit's evolving protocols. Mornings began with expanded briefings, handlers now equipped with encrypted tablets for real-time alert relays, ensuring no bark went unheeded without command oversight. In the training yard, under a sky streaked with high cirrus clouds, Elena led a mixed platoon demo for incoming rotations from Fort Harlan's satellite outposts. Rex quartered the mock corridor setup, a plywood facsimile of the fateful hall, complete with embedded scent canisters, his nose working in efficient sweeps, ears pinpointed. "Alert!" she called as he sat sharp at the third panel, her voice carrying over the assembled ranks. Engineers flanked her, scanners humming in sync, prying the surface to reveal the planted anomaly, a benign, volatile simulant cleared in seconds. The observers, lieutenants from JTF, their notebooks flipping, nodded approval, one murmuring into his radio about scalability. Captain Voss watched from the sidelines, his arms crossed over his chest plate, the sun glinting off his insignia. After the run, he approached as the group dispersed, gravel crunching underfoot. "Reyes commands greenlit your module for the regional symposium next month. K-9 integration in hazard sweeps, your blueprint." His tone held the gravel of reluctant admiration, the man who'd once cited her for insubordination, now endorsing her framework. Elena met his gaze, Rex leaning into her leg with a soft huff. "Thank you, sir. It's the unit's work, Rex included." He glanced at the dog, a faint curve touching his lips. "He's the edge we needed. Keep him sharp. Audits don't touch instinct." The exchange passed without ceremony, just two soldiers aligning in the chain's subtle flex. Back at the kennels, Elena logged the session's metrics, Rex's response time down to 2.7 seconds, bond integrity at full, her pen scratching steadily under the fluorescent hum. The reforms she'd ignited now rippled outward. Bases from Pendleton to Bragg adopting hybrid protocols, K-9 alerts elevated in doctrine manuals, all traced to Harlan's corridor incident. But the transformation cut deeper, threading through the ranks like radio signals in the night. In the mess hall that evening, over trays of steamed rice and tactical briefings projected on a corner screen, Private Kerr slid into the seat across from her. Scout dozed under the table, mirroring Rex's calm repose. "Sarge, got a kid from my old unit asking for pointers. Says the Reyes rule's making waves up north. Handlers are training dogs on structural cues now, no more blind sweeps." His eyes held a spark of the same quiet defiance she'd shown, tempered by the discipline that followed. Elena forked a bite, the utensil clinking softly. "It's not a rule. It's procedure. Pass it on. Verify, escalate, trust the nose." Kerr nodded, but the conversation lingered in the air, a mentorship born of shared scrutiny. Word had spread through informal channels, handler forums on secure nets, late-night talks in the barracks, positioning her as a symbol, not of rebellion, but of moral discernment within the lines. Major Grant's office even requested her for a closed-door panel on ethical overrides, her input shaping policy memos that balanced obedience with operational acuity. Nights brought reflection in the quiet of her quarters, the cot's frame groaning as she reviewed declassified reports on the crates. The simulants, once buried in bureaucratic shadows, now symbolized the institution's blind spots, Cold War relics exposed by a single alert, prompting a DoD-wide audit of archived materials. Elena's role, anonymized in official channels, surfaced in internal commendations. A certificate framed on her wall, gold-embossed, citing exemplary initiative in safeguarding personnel. Yet the cost echoed in subtler ways. The 6-month review period meant closer evals, a vigilant eye on every decision. Rex sensed it during their evening walks, his pace sinking tighter to hers, as if compensating for the human uncertainties. One dawn, as fog clung to the perimeter fences like a shroud, Base Command summoned her to the Commandant's office. Colonel Hale presided. The room's oak desk polished to a sheen, maps of Harlan's expansions pinned behind him. Rex waited outside, leashed to a post, his whines faint through the door. "Sergeant," Hale began, gesturing to a chair, "your actions set a precedent. The generals endorsed a mentorship program, veteran handlers like you training juniors on instinct chain integration. It's expanding. You're the anchor." Elena's pulse steadied, the offer a bridge from defiance to legacy. "Honored, sir, but it's Rex's lead. I'll ensure the bonds hold." Hale's nod carried weight, the system learning through her, adapting without unraveling. As she exited, the fog lifting to reveal the parade ground stirring with formations, handlers saluting in crisp lines, she clipped Rex's leash. His tail gave a single wag, eyes meeting hers in that profound silence. The base's pulse quickened that week, full operations resuming with the auxiliary wing decon certified, its corridors now reinforced and monitored. Elena's first mentorship session convened in the auditorium, a dozen juniors arrayed with their dogs, notebooks open. She demonstrated with Rex the alert, the verify, the radio call, procedural, restrained, emotion emerging in the dog's unerring focus. Questions flowed. What if orders conflict? She answered evenly. Escalate. Conscience serves the mission, not the moment. Applause was brief, professional, but the seed took root, her integrity a quiet force reshaping the hierarchy. By month's end, the external article had evolved into a case study in training journals. Harlan Protocol. K-9 discernment in institutional oversight, crediting anonymous K-9 teams while the base knew the truth. Voss pulled her aside during muster, the sun cresting hot over the ranks. "You're a symbol now, Reyes. Wear it light. Teach it right." She saluted, Rex at heel, the wind carrying the hum of helicopters inbound for joint exercises. In the kennels that night, Under the soft glow of security lights, Elena brushed Rex's coat, the bristles whispering against his fur as stars wheeled overhead. The institution had bent, reformed by one act of moral courage, her path from outlier to exemplar, a testament to loyalty's enduring strength. Duty and conscience, once at odds, now fortified the line, a legacy woven into every alert, every order, ensuring the shadows held no more surprises. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching The Case of Her Dog Barked at an Empty Corridor. What they found behind the wall shut down the base overnight. See you in the next one. In the end, the wall's secrets yielded to the unyielding bond between soldier and sentinel. A reminder that true order emerges not from silence, but from the disciplined voice of conscience.